In our reading today, we get a sense of Kenneth Boulding's idea of faith when he describes the oversoul, the mysterious being in the distance, but is an integral part of the cosmos. However, his line of questioning, how can I be a part of you? How can I reach out and touch your starry garment? How can I give you this much away to the greater whole? Eventually, he realizes that the distance between isn't so great, that he is already connected to the divine, that he feels the spirit within him, and that which he feels inside him is a burning oneness, binding everything, holding everything, connected to everything, holding the cosmos in a web of law. And that's one way to interpret the text, right? But as we know, when information is presented and there are at least two UUs in the room, you'll have at least 5 opinions. And that is what I love about Unitarian Universalist communities. It allows for the space for questioning, for challenging the norm. But there's another side to that. This can often feel divisive or even painful, wrought with emotion and attachment, and it could also lead to a nuanced spiritual dialogue. The truth is a sticky thing. The truth of my body isn't the same as the truth of your body, or maybe it is. I've witnessed the truth spun in different directions, often serving sinister purposes or diluted or flavored with colorful commentary. And even as we turn to the sources of Unitarian Universalist wisdom, our pluralist values often bring us to teachings that support some aspects of our faith while betraying other aspects of our faith, contradicting truths that exist in opposition to one another, truths that exist at the same time, but in different contexts. There's a joke that traveled with me during my first year of seminary, and it serves as a warning to other seminarians. Be careful with Unitarian Universalist seminarians. They will be offended if you assume they believed in God, and be equally offended if you assume they didn't. My response to that was, I'd be offended if you didn't try to understand my truth before making assumptions about what I believe. And there it is. Peeking through all of that was a Unitarian Universalist sensibility, the trying to understand the truth. Questioning is a vehicle to understanding, and with enough practice, we can get pretty good at it. Boulding's use of questioning in our reading is how I often encounter the sacred practice of questioning in the wider UU world. I often run into questions about the human condition. What does it mean to be human? What is our place in nature and in the cosmos? What is the relationship between our body and our soul, our physical and our spiritual identity? What does it mean to be an individual, and how do we live as members of a society, a community? What does it mean to know? What and how much can we know? What are beauty and goodness and truth? What is wisdom, and how can we attain it? These questions seek to understand the spiritual in our bodies. Choosing the root of the enduring questions is in itself a spiritual practice, a way to discern how one's understanding of oneself, and more importantly, your relationship to the world. Today, our question is, what is freedom and justice? What does it mean to be free? What is freedom for? How are freedom and responsibility related? but even the most core question of what is justice, what can it be? Can it be achieved in this world? And if so, how? And what is the relationship between justice and mercy? And how can we be just and merciful? Well, that reminds me of a story. And I've been part of different religious communities, some academic, some not, some that are staunchly humanist, and others some would call woo-woo, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It just means like an unconventional belief regarding beliefs like regarded as having little or no scientific basis, especially those relating to spirituality. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just wanted to express the range of communities that I've been a part of, and the thing that binds them together in my own experience is that they have all failed me in one way or another. And some of these failures are minor. Some of them are outright rejection. It's become a fact of my life that every time I'm part of a community, I am waiting for that pivotal moment where I will choose to stay or continue. And these moments trigger these decision trees of questions. Could this happen again? Is it worth engaging? Should we get a lawyer? You know, who am I speaking with? What are the ways to mend this situation? Is this beyond mending? How do we add this to the bylaws? We spend so much time arriving at the solution, at the truth that sits at the center of our UU institutional systems, that it pulls us away from asking the good and juicy questions. Does this seem just in the context of the situation? Are we living into our values? But even questions like that enters the paradox at the heart of our spiritual and intellectual existence, the dynamic interplay between questioning and knowing our own internal understanding of the truth, of our world, of our own belief, of our own faith. Why question these things when we already believe it's true? And I can tell you that this practice isn't for the weak. It can often lead us to places of vulnerability. Dr. Brené Brown, a renowned researcher on vulnerability and shame, beautifully articulates that it is only by confronting this vulnerability, by daring greatly and acknowledging our fears and wondering, that we can truly find courage, connection, and ultimately cultivate faith in ourselves and others. It is meant to empower us to lean into ideas and shape them in ways that lead us to deeper truths. Are our questions expressions of our anger? Maybe it's an expression of our fear. Are these questions rooted in joy? Is it in love? Maybe hope? She argues that vulnerability that is being felt by the inquirer, the person asking the question, is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. In the context of faith, this means that admitting our doubts is not a symptom of weakness, as vulnerability is often interpreted, but a testament to a brave struggle with the heart of the issue at hand. On May 12, 2025, I joined a group of faith leaders to blockade and disrupt the operations of a newly formed ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. And as we linked arms and sang and chanted, the Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner, a leading voice in the action, was asking the core questions. Who do you have in there? Who do you have in there? Speaking to the facility's unwillingness to provide a list of names of the people detained in the facility, followed by chants of, "Which side are you on, my people? Which side are you on?" voices transformed into pointed questions that ask us to look closely at what is happening, who it's happening to, what kind of country have we become. The reminder here is to not take your ability to question for granted. It is a privilege, especially in an increasingly fascist country. Questioning comes from a place of vulnerability, and it is a source of power. Questioning is risky, especially when it provides a truth that can shatter a system that benefits the powerful institutions and individuals and oligarchs and dynasties of powerful families in this country. Asking questions on a student visa could see you unjustly detained and deported, which makes asking those questions even more important. What does a just society look like? How do we achieve this in our lifetime? The Reverend Dr. William Barber, a contemporary moral leader and the leading figure in the Poor People's Campaign, embodies the notion that questioning can spur us into action. Reverend Barber's activism, deeply rooted in faith, demonstrates how more questions can arise from witnessing the pain and suffering caused by rampant inequality and injustice in our societies. Who are the poor? What had led them there? What are the structures of power and influence that had led to their exploitation? Is it the government? Is it the church? Is it us? Dr. Barber's faith includes and beholds a world that is cruel to people who die an early and unjust death. Yet, instead of leading to despair, which this type of questioning can often do, his questions call us to action, challenging us to work towards a society that reflects our shared moral principles and convictions, helping us ask the questions, who will take care of the poor in this country? Isn't the task of the government to ensure that the most vulnerable among us are protected? Who do our institutions truly serve? The type of faith that doesn't ask questions is a blind faith. A blind faith stifles creativity. It stifles creation. A blind faith removes the potential of forming new and beautiful truths. We strive for a faith that seeks to understand, a faith that is continually tested, questioned, and therefore strengthened. A blind faith has all the answers. A blind faith knows everything there is to know about sex and gender. A blind faith has the answers about what it means to be queer, what to do with a woman's body, why the poor are why they are. A blind faith is being told what God is, where God is, what gender, nature, and being God is, and will tell you without blinking who God hates. But our faith is a living faith, and a living faith doubts. A living faith allows the full expression of humanity to explore the depths of our fears, our hopes, our dreams, our convictions. A living faith opens itself to new possibilities, new perspectives of learning and growth. And how do we walk this path? How do we engage with our doubts in a way that fosters growth instead of despair? It requires us to cultivate a mindset of openness and humility, to accept that we do not have all the answers, and that is okay. That is not sinful, that is not bad, that is not wrong. It is okay. Questioning should be celebrated and not seen as antagonistic. It calls us to be seekers, continuously striving for understanding and wisdom. It demands that we engage in authentic community, spaces where questions are welcomed, where dialogue is encouraged, where differing perspectives are valued, where doubts can be shared and explored and transformed into sources of strength and enlightenment in the safety of community. And it should challenge us to act, to allow our doubts and questions to propel us beyond the walls of this congregation into meaningful action in the world. So this is the invitation. Whether it is to explore our inner life, our beliefs, our core values, whether it is to envision a just world out there, or whether it is also an invitation to wander, to wonder, and to wrestle with the mysteries of life. It's an invitation to engage the world fully with courage as markers of our shared humanity and as stepping stones to a richer and more authentic faith. Amen, and blessed be.